Okay, cool. So, hi, Paul. Thank you for the interview. And we met on Twitter a few days ago. We had an exchange on the role of the metaphor and in content, in advertising, promotion, marketing, and how it how it relates to innovation. And I asked you on Twitter that we can continue that in this raw interview, and you accepted. Thank you. And so I'm gonna start with with a very direct question. So, what do you think is innovation?
What do I think is innovation? Good question. Good stuff.
Yeah,
throw that one out there at the beginning.
Yeah. Sorry for that.
So my take on innovation is, if for something, I guess I'll probably just change it slightly to say, for something to be innovative, I would say it needs to make a leap, or it needs to move something on a certain amount. So I think often that's described as kind of improvement. So I think improvement is a difficult word sometimes. So, what's improved? Something can improve something for one person, but not for another person. So that's a difficult kind of definition. But I think to innovate is, it's to take maybe a new approach to something that markedly changes the game. So it's very often it's linked to creativity, because creativity can make those kind of, or can help make those leaps. But yeah, that's kind of how I'd describe something that is innovative. Is not necessarily something that is, I don't think it needs to be completely original in that it's never been done before, but it could be a combination that hasn't happened before, or it could be something that's innovative, could be taking how something works in one sector and then applying it to another sector where it's never worked before. That's quite innovative. So there's lots of ways to be innovative, but I think the big point is that it's kind of changing the game for people.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I talk about innovation, because it seems like a very overused word, and then there is those people who always want innovation to be like super exclusive, like quantum computers or something, or like flying cars. And I find that a little bit kind of, it excludes all the other, as you just said. It seems to me that you're saying kind of what I believe is that there are many different levels of innovation, and we should not underestimate like small changes, like, as you said, moving something from one domain to another, like something that works in ice creams and moving it into like, I don't know, software development, and suddenly you solve problems, or mixing two things together. So, yeah, I'm very happy that you're...
Yeah, I think you can be innovative in all sorts of ways. And I think there's a parallel to creativity. I think you can be creative in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
You can be innovative in how you price something, in how you pay for, in how you, I was talking to, so I set up a talk from a guy called Mike Coulter, and he gave a talk to us at Halo yesterday about behavior design.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things he talks about in behavior design is this idea of like the FOG behavior model. He talks about essentially in terms of behavior, to encourage a behavior, you need three things, which is motivation, ability, and prompt. And he talks about that oftentimes people have motivation, but they just can't do the thing they want to do. And one example he gave was Adobe Creative Suite. And he said that loads of people wanted to use Adobe Creative Suite, but it cost like X £1,000, like M1 Go. And they then changed it to be a monthly payment model, which then made it which then obviously increased the ability for people to buy it. Now, I guess I would say that's an innovative approach to pricing.
Yeah.
But I think that I think maybe, as you're saying, some people frame innovation as like these grand ideas, when actually I think being innovative can take all sorts of forms.
Yeah. We were just talking about Photoshop. I mean, Adobe. So did you try Affinity, where I didn't try it yet.
No.
The suite, it's like much more affordable. So there is it's kind of the same features, maybe a bit different features, easier, but
I think
it's much cheaper. Yeah, meaning they innovated in how they do run the business, maybe by outsourcing or lowering the cost so they can provide the software, you know.
well, one of the most innovative approaches that actually I read up a lot on, someone, I don't know if you've heard of him, called Lawrence Lessig. And he wrote a book called like Free Culture and things like this, but he wrote a lot about things like the Creative Commons and open source.
Mm-hmm.
Now, open source, you know, is, and why I'm talking about this is that there are platforms which are designed to be replacements for Adobe products that are all open sourced. So they were created through the open source. Now, I think that type of innovation, that open innovation, that kind of, I guess, non-directed or kind of group directed is a really interesting space of type of innovation.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of different types of innovation for me. Like being innovative is, it's, you know, how you build something, how you price something, how you know, whatever. There's all sorts.
And did you hear about what happened with BMW and Volkswagen last week? That they were fined by European Commission for being anti-innovative.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. That's, I think, one of the first times ever that actually that is actual, like that's how they call the fine, because they created a cartel together with Daimler, with Mercedes. So the three car manufacturers were working together to reduce innovation in, I think, emissions, and which was damaging the environment, offering less value. So for many years, they were working together as a cartel, you know, to do less.
And I suppose that was to protect their existing business model, I guess.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just to make, so they do less. They were basically, they all agreed to be easy and to make less. But it's very interesting because it just happened last week. So where they are, it's literally called anti-innovation. You know, they were like, they are using actually that as a statement. Like everybody was shocked, and I'm very happy that governments are now taking a look, because returning to the metaphor, I think you said a good thing, that metaphor in communication, in content, creates a competitive advantage when products are very similar. You know, that's usually typical with the top, you know, Fortune 500, where there is not much innovation. So they have to differentiate by content. You know, content creates new values and creates kind of artificial uniqueness between brands. You know, what's the difference between Pepsi and Coca-Cola? So you do that because products are the same for 100 years. And they don't want products to be changed in any way. They basically agree. And then they create this kind of like differentiation through content. Like BMW is for like 40-year-old athletic men, and Mercedes is for older, and Volkswagen is for families, and you know, but they're all kind of the same car. You know, they only change the display and like different seat or something like that. It's kind of, and the shape of the hood. You know, it's like, and then thank God we had maybe Tesla shaking it up a little bit. You know, my question is, because you said you don't see too much innovation, you know, so I got worried. I was worried about that, and with this news that came, you know, that companies are working to actually stop innovation. You know, like their companies, instead of creating innovation, they're blocking innovation. And so what do you mean by you don't see too much innovation? You know, because you seem to have a very broad and accepting definition of innovation.
So I think, I guess there's kind of 2 points to make about what I was talking about in this idea of, so I was talking about this idea of metaphor. I think metaphor is extremely powerful, and it's extremely powerful because metaphor is actually so embedded in our language that people understand metaphor in a way that they don't necessarily, like, that they might not necessarily understand the actual you know, product offering. So
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? Just one thing. Yeah, because I'm a poet as well, and I'm an artist and a poet. So you know, I mean, it's all about, all you can use is metaphors. You know, because if I feel pain about a specific thing, you know, it's very, sometimes you can explain that specific thing, and some people in the world might have the specific experience. But if you use a metaphor, and then you connect to a much wider range of people. That's kind of the definition of poetry and art. You're communicating on that level, kind of like religion. Religion is like dealing with questions that people want, and that are not answered, and they all agree, all the humans agree that, about these questions, afterlife and stuff like that. So for me, metaphor, what I'm trying to say, for me, metaphor is like so much bigger. It's very good in business. It's very good in talking to people. It's very good in marketing, in promotion. Very good in art. Overall, I think it's very powerful. Although sometimes could be misunderstood.
I think why metaphor is good for business and therefore and also good for brand is for exactly for that reason, that it's good for it's good. It's a good way for people to communicate and to get other people to understand what they're talking about, and vitally to understand why what they're talking about has value to them. That's the important bit, and this is why I so in terms of innovation, I think that there is over the years, I've worked as brand consultant and strategy and things like that, and I worked a lot with startups and scale ups and people like that, and there were genuinely businesses who had some really great minds behind the people who were starting it. And one really good example is I went up to see a group of kind of scale ups who were linked to medicine and those kind of areas up in Edinburgh. And, I was in a room talking, I was invited because I was talking to all these people who were super, super smart. But the problem that they pretty much all had was they were producing some really innovative and new sort of medicines and things like that. But because they understood this to such a deep degree, they really struggled to communicate it at a level that anyone else would get.
Yeah.
So this was the kind of why, even when you're talking to people who are trying to be innovative, it's kind of like saying, you need to dumb it down a bit and to get everyone else to come on board. And which is why I think that metaphor is really useful. Now, I think my point on that Twitter exchange was metaphor is also really useful to sell Coca-Cola, because it doesn't have any inherent, Coca-Cola doesn't really have any benefits, full stop. But, but I've watched some of your other interviews, and you use Coca-Cola for everything that's not innovative. So,
but just a disclaimer, I think I was an Ironman triathlete, and there is no better drink than Coca-Cola when you're doing an Ironman. It's like unbelievably effective. It's so much sugar and caffeine with that extra chemical that prevents you from puking after you have so much. They really have that. Absolutely the number one sports drink for long distance, for endurance athletes. And it's, in my opinion, it's not something you should drink every day. It's really like doing an Ironman at 40 degrees, 10 hours, like effort. That's Coca-Cola is unbelievably, like I tested everything, like Red Bull. Red Bull is a joke compared to Coca-Cola. Sorry.
And just very quickly on that. So I did a couple of triathlons like years ago.
Oh, really? Bravo.
And so when I was trying to do them, I was reading stuff from like professional triathletes, and there was a female triathlete who said when she's doing swimming training in open water, afterwards she'll drink Coca-Cola, not for the energy, but because it just basically kills all the bugs that she might have swallowed in the water, because it's just like God knows what's in it, but it just kills everything.
Yeah,
it was like brilliant. But no, I think that this is the big problem for me for innovation, which is, or for people doing something innovative, is that when you're doing something new, it's hard to get people. It's not obvious what the value is to your audience because it's new. They're not used to it. They don't know what it is. They don't know why they should be using it. So if you produce a phone that is like the iPhone, but it's a different brand, you don't need to explain to people what its benefits are because they know what it is. If you're doing something innovative, I think actually the need for connecting why it has value to people is even greater. And so this idea of kind of metaphor and methods to communicate to help understanding is really, really important. So I think my point was that in the main, I think the most work that I guess marketers do is they are marketing products or brands that just aren't innovative, right? So I think that then, like you've said, people have to lean on different things like metaphor and things like that. I think that the other problem that marketers have increasingly is that, if you go back to the classic kind of 4 Ps of marketing, that where you can be, I guess, really innovative is in product, in that P, right? Or you can also be innovative in how you price. You can actually be innovative in where you place things. Yes, but the problem that most marketers have nowadays is that they're dealing with 1 P, which is promotion. Like they deal with the promotion. So the problem is, what marketers are asked to do is to frame or talk about something and promote it in a way that's going to appeal to people. So therefore, this idea that, metaphor is very useful along with other techniques. I think that not only are there not so many businesses being innovative, but there's also not the opportunity for a marketer to encourage innovation in a business, because a lot of business functions, those 4 Ps, are split into 4 different parts of a company. Yeah. So innovation requires joined up thinking, because you need to see, is that work, I've seen an opportunity there, but that's going to be actually informing the actual product. But then you're kind of dealing with this massive internal politics of, I need to talk to the head of product, or I need to talk to the finance people because they do pricing. That actually, if you are breaking things apart in bigger businesses, innovation is much more difficult. That's why the really kind of actually innovative stuff is coming from the smaller businesses, because it's just inherently much more joined up. Because the same
they have to do it. They have no choice.
Yeah, they have to do everything. But that also then makes a problem for, well, that's why I think that you don't see so much innovation, because the big players aren't innovating and the small players are pushing against this brick wall that they can't break through. And like to your point earlier, it could even be that the big players are colluding to kind of push against innovation.
Well, the everything you said, I mean, I agreed. I had a gut reaction on Twitter because I was thinking about my article that day. And I agree on the role of metaphor, and I mean, when I try to work only with innovative businesses that I believe that are truly innovative, like technologies that people don't know, as you said, the pharma company, biotech company that you work with. But there is one strategic problem. Let's say we're both, you're a strategist, I consider myself a strategist. So we have to think like chess game. And we have to figure out how can these companies beat actually survive in the market, not be at the level of under 100 million, how they can actually grow and spread the innovation, And then we have to help the next company beat them as well, because whenever they become big, they stop innovating. But the problem the challenge I have with metaphors is that, okay, I find a company like you described, they have great technology, they're very nerdy, there is a problem explaining that. We come up with a metaphor. Then we enter the game of metaphors and advertising that where these companies cannot win. First of all, it requires enormous amount of money to do it. We are very expensive, to create these metaphors, and the whole system is rigged with the metaphors and with advertising that's metaphoric and communication that's metaphoric, is rigged to support the big players. It's very expensive, and they kind of start competing not with their weapon, which is an innovation, real simple to explain innovation, but it's like you're a good triathlete and you're forced to play tennis. And you say, well, if I want to make money, I mean, triathlon doesn't pay much, so, okay, I want to make money, so I have to go play tennis, but I'm not a good tennis player. So the metaphor is correct. It's going to explain, it's going to transcend the technology gap, understanding of science and technology. And you can easily explain things, like go to the core value. And then if they have motivation, then they learn about science, technology, engineering, and details. But you're entering a game where suddenly you're like going from a local 5K run to USA Super Bowl, where you really need a ton of money. You need completely different set of skills. And you are competing, your main weapon is completely useless, because you have great technology that's going to save people's lives, make everybody better, but it just doesn't perform as a metaphor. You cannot beat Coca-Cola again with Coca-Cola or anybody, you cannot beat them. You're suddenly like, wow, I'm in the big leagues now, and I'm, no matter how good the strategist you are, you still need like 100 million in advertising, and you need an amazing joke idea, which means you need to have the best people, and that kills. Because my experience with big companies, and some of the top executives even admitted, that whole advertising thing is basically a competitive mode against medium and smaller, because that's, as soon as medium and smaller try to invest in that, they ran out of money. They just cannot. They have no access. So metaphor theoretically good, but I see it as that metaphoric communication. But I see it as still innovation companies. How can someone break through and reach the mass, with innovation? How can we accelerate innovation? That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that the problem with, and this is actually the problem with brand as well, which is that you're fighting a money game, because ultimately that your brand is going to so I describe brand as that it requires what I define as shared meaning, right? So why I say that is, if each of us think a brand means a different thing, then it's not really a brand, because it has to have a meaning that, you don't have an exact definition that we all share, but we all kind of know Volvo is safe, right? And we all kind of know, whatever, that Nike's about getting out and doing it, that sort of thing. So this shared meaning. And then that shared meaning uses these identifiable visual or audio cues, right? That's fundamentally it. The problem with shared meaning is you need a lot of communication to make people understand that, because it takes a lot of repetition and to get these messages through, and repetition costs a lot of money, because you're buying media. So the innovation is very difficult to break through. So as people who would advise businesses, it's metaphor is a useful tool, but it's not the only tool. And I think part of it also is how do we break into this market? What's our strategy of, we can use metaphor, but that's not going to, like you said, that's something that everyone will use. And if you're using the same as everyone else, the people who are saying it more and better and louder are going to be heard more. So I think there are interesting examples. I think one good example is that the kind of innovator, the adoption curve, or whatever it's called, which is, they break it into, I think, 5 sections. Yeah. Then you have like sort of the early adopters right at the beginning, who there's not many of them, but then it sort of goes through, and then you have in the middle you have your big sort of mass market. Yeah. Now I think that as a strategy, a strategy is not just about how we frame messaging. Strategy is about who we tell as well. And so this idea of, I think that whenever I'm advising, say, people who are trying to do something different, is you look for those people who might they might want something different. They're already motivated to try something different. But so I mean, they've turned into it's turned into an interesting story, the Oatly story. But Oatly's kind of become there's a definite pushback against them now.
Oatly, okay, Oatly.
Yeah.
I didn't follow that. What's the story? I saw something on 9gag, but I didn't get into it. Yeah.
Well, so Oatly now, the story, there's lots of articles written about, is oat milk really that good for you? Or is Oatly's oat milk really that good for you? Because they have lots of like processes and stuff. And then they also had that issue where they got in a large amount of investment from, I think, BlackRock, which had kind of questionable other investments. Mm-hmm. So this idea that they're a very kind of purpose-led business is kind of being pushed against now. When they started, they didn't have much money for marketing, but they wanted to they needed to break this dairy market. So, and the dairy market, the dairy milks are obviously like massively commanding the market. They had a very smart approach, which was, yes, they played to this sort of the kind of metaphors and the ideas of milk for humans and not for cows and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But they also took an approach which was they got Oatly into cool coffee shops and they got it kind of displayed at the counters. And so it's this kind of positioning the brand by association. And so it became this kind of small, niche, cool kind of thing to have. And they they used their packaging as a form of advertising, right? So that was their media, was their pack. Mm-hmm. So they used the media as the pack, and they used cool coffee shops as the kind of placement. And it was a really smart strategy that was really focused, and it gave them a foothold, and it gave them a positioning, and then they kind of grew from there. So I think that's actually another example of innovation, of an innovative approach to say, if we just put, no matter how great our advertising was, we simply cannot afford to take on to do a head first kind of like to do a sort of full frontal charge at the dairy industry. So we'll just kind of go around the back, try and gather more sort of troops as we go, and then take them on that way. But it's an interesting, it's a really interesting one. You're completely right though, that the system it doesn't encourage innovation, and it doesn't encourage small businesses. Yeah. Breaking in.
I'm worried. Oatly is nice. I think they did a good design, and by accident, I had a client in Italy that made ice cream that can be packed like that as well. And we did a strategy for them, and they didn't pull through. They lost the investment for whatever internal reasons. But I was so motivated to do it because we came up with this thing where we can start in California placing their ice cream in the offices so people can have ice cream, because you can make it without freezer with just KitchenAid. So the same thing, kind of like you pick the place.
Yeah.
You want to start with the high-tech companies, delivering, having a subscription for ice cream, which doesn't need to be in a freezer, and you can transport it directly from Italy. It was very, very tasty. Gelato, not ice cream. Wow. Directly made in the Italian mountains and stuff like that. So near Torino. So, and it didn't work out. I was so motivated by this brand. I told them, when they pulled out, I said, I'll put my own money. It's like, I really love the product and the concept that we can, sell it that way, have a special placement. Before Oatly, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. But anyway, I'm still worried about what I'm worried about. The fact is that like a simple question to you, like you seem to be my age. I'm born in 77, so late 70s. How many innovating companies did pull through? How much did our lives change? Because I'm looking at my father is 81, 82 now, 81, and he was born in 1940, World War II. I think the world changed like enormously, for him, especially by my age, which is 80s, And then it seems that something happened in the 80s. You know, people, my impression is people made a lot of money with finances and stuff, and it just kind of, you know, in the 60s and 70s, our job was much more communicating, like something that's, there is a new gadget, there is a new thing. It was constantly like this. And now there is some of that, but you know, a lot of domains are taking over. Like there is a milk producer, there, like few of them, and that's it. There is a mineral water producer, few of them, that's it. There is a car producer, few of them, and that's it. And then we have all these people trying to go to space and making weird stuff on mobiles because nobody wants to enter and touch, make a new milk, make a new car, because it's unbelievably expensive and difficult. And you know, like that's, I mean, I'm not blaming Richard Branson going to space. You know, all these people are saying like billionaires are going to space. Well, what else can they do? I mean, like to compete against Parmalat, for example, in milk, like 80% of cheese in America is made by one factor. I mean, are you gonna, I mean, I think it's easier to go to Mars than to enter a cheese market in USA, you know, with a better cheese, you know. I'm just worried that we are not seeing much, you know, and it seems that now with, okay, we got, thanks God to Apple, they made a smartphone work, and we had some new things in our lives. So these games and stuff, that was a big change. Before I had a StarTech, Motorola, before that I had a phone, but that's done, like it's done. Samsung, Apple, few players, and they're not going to change. Now they started slowing down the phones. They started doing this kind of weird stuff, not really innovating, you know, like they're innovating in charging for head you know, the earphones and stuff like that. You know, they're not really making it the amazing change for us. And I'm worried what's next, you know. So
I mean,
it's going down. Like our kids are not going to get, we got less than our parents, and our kids are going to get much less because it's all taken, it's there, and it's so expensive, impossibly to break through, you know.
I mean there's a lot wrapped up in that kind of statement that you
Sorry.
no, but I think there's
what is the meaning of life?
yeah, but it's all really interesting because I think that I guess there's two really big points. Maybe one is, I think you're entirely right, is that there seems to be an increasingly kind of monopolistic hold on and on whether it's foods or whether it's tech or whatever, and that convergence seems to be continuing. So as an example, I read only this morning that Netflix are getting into gaming. So they're putting games on their site. So there's this convergence of who's going to be the big home entertainment provider. The problem is, and I think this is where the problem is that people like Netflix or Amazon or Google will spend a lot of money, like obviously a ludicrous amount of money, on it's an investment to them to be the platform in the home, because the value to them isn't the money you pay for their stuff. The value to them is tracking your actions and your preferences and then selling that information on, right? And that's what Facebook does, and that's what whoever does. Now that is I think that is a fundamental shift that digital has enabled, that prior to the internet they couldn't do. It was so that businesses had to make their money selling the things they made. Now these huge businesses can lose a ludicrous amount of money because that's not where the value is. The value is being the one in the home or being whatever. I think that the other big issue is there's always innovation, right? There's always some forms of innovation.
But inside companies.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is that I think that
not for us.
Maybe we've been through, because I was born the same year, like 1977, and I think we have been fortunate enough to live through a massive change in terms of this, you know, digital revolution that I think we kind of take it for granted now, but when you look back 20 years, it's a huge change in how we do things
Yeah.
and what we are able to do, and comparable to that, I think, comparable to that industrial revolution when that happened. And I think that that happened. Obviously, it's still, we're still learning what can be done, and there's still interesting stuff happening. But we went through this period where there were huge innovations from people like Apple and etc. And maybe we're now in a period where there aren't huge maybe we're now in a period where it is just people tweaking around the edges. Like even Apple, just, oh, we've changed the size of the phone. It's like brilliant. Because I remember when they did that first presentation of the iPhone, it's like, wow, that's insane. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're going to get that, because maybe it was a wave that we went through. But I think you're right. The problem is people will still be innovative. There will still be stuff like really nice innovations that happen. I think the big problem is, like you said, can people afford to bring an innovation to market? Can people afford to then tell people about it? And the big thing is, can people stop someone just copying their innovation or changing it very slightly and chucking loads of money at it and blowing them out of the water, even though they were the first people to come up with it? That's one of the big problems. So I guess one really good example is a friend of mine, or a guy I was at university with, was a product designer, and he designed this product called Trunky. I don't know if you've ever heard of Trunky.
Trunky.
Yeah. So it's a kid's ride-on suitcase, right?
Okay. Yeah. I know when they sit on the.
Yeah. So they sit on the back of it and
Oh,
then ride along. It was kind of designed for
I
airports.
visually know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
even
then,
have a kid on the suitcase. Yeah.
yeah. So then they put their stuff in it, and this was an innovative product. It was something that he identified a need for it. There was nothing like it. Designed the product. I think he actually started designing it at university.
Yeah, it exists in Serbia as well. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
It's selling everywhere. It's cool.
So it's selling everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, a few years ago, he went through a huge court battle because essentially some companies in China just copied it, changed the shapes of things, and then sold tons of copies of his innovation. And the problem, and he lost the court case. He lost millions, or I think about $1 million or something. But they lost the court case purely because I think it was something like his patent, his drawings for his patents weren't specific enough, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like some detail. It was some detail. So there are the barrier to innovation isn't just having the idea. Having the ideas it's easy. We have loads of ideas. Like having an idea, great. It's difficult to bring it to market. It's then difficult. If it's a great idea, someone's going to nick it. And if they've got loads of money and you've not really protected the idea, that you are in danger of them essentially benefiting from your innovation. So this.
Well, I try to distinguish the legal issues, because I have clients that are in legal battles, and it doesn't have to be China, believe me. A German company, a respectable Western company is gonna copy even much more than a Chinese company, and very openly. They're just gonna buy a product and scan it and do it. So there is like, this is human behavior. It's not Chinese behavior. Although I think you can sue a German company. Chinese a bit harder. Yeah. So
I think that no, you're completely right. It was just in that instance.
Yeah. But my point is that legal issues are, sometimes I talk to lawyers, you have to deal with that. But that's a legal issue, like patents, and I negotiated patents and all this stuff. That's like a whole different world. And I leave it up to the lawyers. They've been dealing with that for since Tesla, it's like had issues with that, with Westinghouse and Edison and all that stuff. So that's like 200-year-old problem or whatever. Actually invented in Venezia, I think, the patent. But the issue that I'm trying to focus on is the communication, because I'm looking at Oatly, and it's the way I see it, because for example, I'm not covered by NDA, so I can say I tried to pitch to Syngenta, which is like Monsanto, and and the guy told me, the CEO of one part of Europe, he told me very easily, this organic stuff, very nice, but it's like 0.1% of the market. It's never going to be big. Like for them, they do it a little bit. It's greenwashing, whitewashing. So Oatly, I see being bought by like a bigger company. It's like in their portfolio. We have this, we are cool. It's like a marketing project, just like there is Chocolately, I think it's called, from Netherlands. Is a guy who did, I think, an honest drink or something in Austria, which is also has that vibe of green, sustainable and stuff. They reach a certain market share, and then they're sold to like Red Bull or Coca-Cola, Heineken, someone like that. And that's it. That's the goal. It doesn't really go beyond that. And those companies keep them at a certain market share, and they control it, and it doesn't go much further than that. So I'm very skeptical that this they can actually change. Like for example, if you want to change the world and you want to improve it, so you want like Oatly is going to improve the world, like it's going to help us all live longer because we drink something healthier. I don't know. I'm just for the sake. It's a theoretical argument, abstract argument. So but it doesn't reach. It reaches like 1 to 3%, because it basically, the only purpose is nice design. They made it. They reached like 2%. Immediately, someone in some big company says, "Okay, let's buy this." Because I was in meetings with those people. They're like list of 10 companies, which one we're going to buy, because it's good for our brand. That's it. They really don't care to make it bigger. It's just like it's a cool thing. Let's attach that little cool thing value to our big company brand. So when we go to meetings, we can just say we have that. And when they negotiate with governments or whatever, they say, "Yeah, we did it." Yeah. Like Coca-Cola has Endomondo, it's like a running app. Coca-Cola is, responsible for diabetes, all over the world, but they have a running app. So it's, Endomondo is innovation. They had like, I think 15 million something, I don't know how many, 20 million people now, and it's a Coca-Cola business, So, and they list it as their innovation. They just bought it, and it's a great app. But anyway, so my point is that because we're running out of time, I have this worry, and I work with a lot of businesses that make stuff that can really reduce sustainability, improve quality, and it's impossible. As you said, they are copied, they are bought, they're constantly fighting against these things. But I'm dealing mostly with the fact that on Instagram, they have no space. On Facebook, they have no space. On TikTok, they have no space. It's almost like if you're trying to communicate something today, like visually, as metaphorically, like try to be visible on Instagram. Basically, I don't know how your Instagram works, and I don't know what I've done. I don't look at naked women on Instagram, but that's all I get. Like I clicked once just to, literally test the algorithm, and it's like it's impossible to get rid of that. Yeah. Like how can a new, a way to do something, an improvement, go through that? It's not even against Coca-Cola. It's about a stupid algorithm that's just going to promote women in tongs.
I think that's a really, really interesting point in terms of digital, which is that I think there's this false idea that we all had this idea that the internet was going to be democratizing, right? And it was going to be, you can find what you want, and you can find anything, and it'll be different to it'll be different to physical, because physical is very physical space is limiting. There's only like in a shop, there's only so many shelves that you can fill with stuff. Yeah. So it's all about who gets on the shelf, right? Yeah. Digital's exactly the same, because whoever's controlling the algorithms that control the preferences of what you are shown, that is that digital availability.
Yeah. And those algorithms were made like 15 years ago by people who they didn't think. I've designed, we spent 3 years designing an algorithm once, and you cannot, you are not, nobody's so smart to understand what's going to happen when you finish it. You don't even know how it works. No. And the Facebook algorithm, the core, the idea is like 10, 15 years ago. Instagram is also, it's made for something completely different. Like, let's promote the most popular image.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to hack. It becomes more complex, but the core is the same because they need to sell that. It's a very primitive algorithm. It doesn't promote the most useful product. It promotes the most popular image.
Yeah, but I do think that so I guess in terms of social platforms like that, but I guess it's true for lots of things. Certain brands have become so big, so kind of dominant, that it's very hard for people to break through. Now, I guess maybe Oatly example is a good one of this as well, which is that what that's meant is that there need to be, that the only way that innovations break through is to smaller audiences and being more niche.
Yeah.
And so to creating kind of niche platforms which people will discover because they're interested in that idea. Then I guess that from there, you then still have a problem of mass market adoption, but I guess you're in a stronger position because you have some kind of an audience and you have some kind of a position. I think maybe that's the only way that you're going to be able to communicate to a massive audience. You can't sort of jump straight into that because you just get drowned out. People with more money will shout louder always. So I think that maybe that's one thing, which is, you know, there's you know, the whole Ehrenberg Bass approach of the, in terms of marketing and your audience, which is mass marketing, talk to everybody. It's like, well, that's great if you're Coca-Cola or Mars or whoever, but that's not great if you've got a very limited budget and if most people don't really care. So to get in, I think to get innovations out, to get innovative ideas out there, you probably need to identify who's really going to care about this innovation, hook them in first. I mean, there's all sorts of examples. I mean, there is some interesting stuff going on these days. You know, the whole NFT stuff is interesting.
I sold a couple of poems as NFTs, made €1,000.
Brilliant.
Selling poems.
It's really interesting. It's, you know, it's a nice idea. I think, you know, crypto.
And I was hacked, and they took half of my money.
Oh no! Oh.
Don't send me any money. I'm still hacked. They hijacked my wallet. I still didn't solve it. Any money that comes to me goes to them. It's still like, it's a bit ridiculous.
But I think that there are interesting things going on. I think that you're right, though, that it is harder to get them to an audience because of these kind of big players. It's harder to get things out there. And, you know, I guess back to my kind of original point is that I think when I was talking about metaphor, it kind of, I guess my point was that it works for innovative companies and it works for people who aren't innovating at all, because it's fundamental. It's to how we communicate, like across the board. So as a tool in itself to help innovation break through, it's not going to work, because it's also a really effective tool to sell the same thing, to wrap the same thing up in a different story.
Yeah.
So it's really, really powerful, but it's powerful because it's everywhere. And so I think that's yeah.
Well, when the world was smaller, like for example, before we were so multinational and global, you know, if you wanted to be the main guy in London, you know, you didn't worry about competing against someone in America and Germany and from China. Like the big guy was just like a local guy still, you know, and you could have a good speech with a good metaphor and a great idea, and you could change the people because you could talk to them on the street and do it. And what happens now is like you wanna compete, and suddenly you're competing with someone who has like 100,000 people, is bigger than a country, and really doesn't want change. Like all they want is to stay as they are, you know. Like kings in the Middle Ages, you know. Let's stay as we are. We don't need to change, you know.
And that's the other big shift that digital and specifically, it's not really digital. When I say digital, it's the internet. Yeah. It's what the internet has enabled, is that connectivity across geographies, which has done exactly that, which people buy into this idea, which is true. You say, my potential audience has just become massive. Yep, That is true. Your potential audience is now anyone in the world who can connect to the internet. True. But that now means that you need to spend a lot more money if you're going to reach them. You know, how are you going to reach all of them? But you're also now in competition with everyone in the world doing the same. So your competitive set has just grown massively. And you're now, like you said, you're now competing against people who are potentially much bigger than you, because yes, your audience has grown, but now your audience, your local audience, has become someone else's. In fact, it's become everyone else's. So I think that we're you know, the internet's been around for whatever 20, 25 years, a bit more, probably a bit more, but I think we are still learning how it affects innovation, how it affects you know, we all, well, I hoped it would be much more kind of democratizing, and you know, it would really help, you know, innovation come through, when it seems that it's just in, you know, the big monopolistic players have figured out how to use it to push everyone down.
They hire the hippies.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
hire the hippies. That's it.
exactly.
We are the hippies. They hire us, and we do the job for them. You know.
Yeah, but
That's what happened before as well. They hire the hippies. You know, the revolutionaries. You know, the communists.
It's a narrative that plays out time.
Just like they got the von Braun to make a rocket. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, but okay. So you told me we ran out of time. We actually
I need
more time.
jump off.
Do you have a few more minutes for the last question, which is your question to me, or we stop?
No, I'll have a few more minutes.
Ask me one question for me. So I feel, so my vanity is fed a little bit.
You know what my question is, because I'm gonna do like a call, you know, like comedians do callbacks, right? Through their set, they do a callback. So I'm gonna jump back to the beginning. I'm gonna put your question to me back to you, which is defining innovation. What is innovation?
Exactly what you said. Exactly what you said. Just rewind. I have one more question. Since we were born in the same year, were you born on 29 December?
No, January.
Okay, so you're 1 year older than me. Okay.
Yeah.
Innovation, yeah, I define it as a positive change, unique positive change. So when someone comes up with, and I do agree, I have this whole terminology explaining it, that you can combine what I call soft values, which is content created, like values that are created by content, by as you said, metaphors, and hard values. And you can also, the easiest way to innovate is to combine two things, like two strange tastes in ice cream, I consider. So any positive change in you know, for you know, one person, you know, so it could be you know, for someone else it can be damaging, you know, as well.
You said it was my definition, but you just defined it very beautifully in 3 words, which was unique positive change. Like, that's much better than my definition.
Yeah, but I have a tendency, I like terminology, you know, so I deal a lot. That's what I was teaching at university, visual analysis. And then I define brand as a collection of values. Value is a positive change. And then there are soft and hard values. Hard values like the price or faster things customers can calculate easily in their mind. Like they immediately see the bigger or smaller. Soft value is like fashion and, you know, like sustainability as well, because they don't calculate that. They trust you that it's sustainable. They don't calculate. So, and soft values are created by content, as we said, metaphors, you know, and, but as I said, the problem with metaphors is that you are entering the game of like completely, and where, you know, I have one more question for you. Like, did you ever succeed to take a innovative company to the higher level? Because I never succeeded. I would like, before I die, to actually, I took many, now I focus only on medium, small size innovation companies, and I haven't succeeded bringing them to the large level, like let's say 500 million plus, 200 million plus.
No, because I in my experience, we've always kind of hit a ceiling. You've always hit, and there's somewhere that it just doesn't. You always hit a ceiling where they either stop, and stay there, or they get bought, and then they jump up.
That's a great.
Or they die and they just finish.
That's the most useful. I mean, you said many smart things, very useful, but that's the best thing you said. Like, I like that metaphor of hitting a ceiling.
Yeah.
That's really genius. That's true. That's how you solved it now for me. Well, thank you very much, Paul. I'm gonna stop it now and then we continue on email.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed it. It was great for me.
Yeah, it's a really interesting chat. Thanks so much for asking.
Ciao, ciao.
Take care. Bye-bye.